Here we go, episode 14. What up, party people? I talk about why I don't use the term golden era when it comes to hip hop. Also, you got your favorite segment, how to approach women, number 14. We're gonna also have a little something about health. I'm gonna talk to you, be a little bit geeky about crossover fatigue when it comes to Marvel Comics. I'll talk about RedMan, Whut, the album. So I know it's gonna be short this time. I gotta do it short because I'm running behind. But y'all know how we do. Check it.
I like the rhymes.
All of us are born with the miraculous ability to determine the direction from which sounds approach us.
Let us venture into new and uncharted land.
People get shook up, when I'm introduced as God.
You got that good hair, too.
You're the first one out there with a dashiki talking that crap.
It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
I pull up, hop out, air out, made it look sexy. They won't take me out my element, nah, take me out my element.
Peace, party people. Again, shout out to my Borinquen fan. And it's just, it's a crime, man. It's a crime what's going on. And people, the U.S., the federal government isn't doing anything. I don't know, I just don't have the words to describe it. Anyway, there are more ways you can help. You can support the Hispanic Federation. And you can just go ahead and Google that. The Hispanic Federation is a Latino nonprofit membership organization. And they're trying to put a bunch of stuff together to help people down there. Also, shout out to Carmelo Anthony, man. He started a Carmelo Anthony Puerto Rico Relief Fund. You just got to Google that and you'll find that as well. And also there's an organization called United for Puerto Rico. It was the First Lady of Puerto Rico, Beatriz Rosello. She launched this fund effort for the folks of Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria. So definitely check those out. You can go ahead and Google that. Shout out to Yero.net. Yero.net is a website for Latino men, and it's spelled Lero. And they actually have a nice article that you just published today about the different places you can go to donate money or do what you can. I got some of their ideas from that website. Shout out to Latinos Out Loud for that as well. So, once again, go deep in your pockets. Let your peoples know. Pass this around. Retweet. Repost on Instagram. And let folks know what's going on. Word is born. Also, man, shout out to Cardi B, yo. Like, what I was, just showing some pictures around, and I stumbled upon this article in the New York Times magazine. I can't remember the name of the writer, but anyway, in it, there was a point when Cardi B's song Bodak Yellow actually was number 2 on the Hot Billboard chart, 100, top 100, right? So Taylor Swift's peoples was like, oh shit. So what they did was, for Taylor Swift, because her song was number 1. So what they did was, they said, well, we want to keep it number 1. So we're going to change the price of that single from $1 to, I think it was like 70 cents, hoping that more people would buy it. But Cardi B still beat it, despite the fact that Taylor Swift's people dropped that down. And I'm blaming Taylor Swift, even though I think she's whack. I don't give a fuck. She's whack. But, but I thought that was an ill story that nobody's talking about. So it's just another way that shows how the music industry will try to shut a sister down. Anyway, shout out to Cardi B, because what she did, right, hasn't been done since Lauryn Hill's 1998 hit single, That Thing. Think about that for a minute. And I know I talk about this a lot. Think about that for a minute. I wasn't even married in 1998. So, I only had one child in 1998. Like, yo, think about that. Like, how long it's been since a woman of color had a #1 single like that, like, you know, a rap joint. Just think about it. It was a rap. Actually, let me rephrase that. A rap song. You know what I mean? So, yo, shout out to Cardi B for that. It's a big deal. Word. Remember that part in Cream when it was like, "Hey, kick the truth to the young black youth." Like, kick the truth to the young black youth. Like, you see what's wrong with that right there? Like, so are you telling me that there's young black youth and old black youth and like middle-aged black youth? Or, I don't know. Because I know like Jamaicans will be like, not Jamaicans, Rastafarians. My bad. Difference, right? Rastafarians be like, the youth them. Word. So I just thought that was something I should throw in there. Yo, you know what's crazy? Like, you know, last couple of weeks we've been talking about the 25th anniversary of this hip-hop album, the 20th anniversary of this hip-hop album. But just, yo, on September 22nd was the 25th anniversary of RedMan's debut album, Whut, the album. You know what I mean? Like, how we missed that? Like, how did I miss that? Like, pretty much like a champion of the funk from the East Coast, Reggie Noble, a.k.a. RedMan. Yo, like, how do we miss that, yo? Like, yo, what's up with that? Anyway, RedMan was put on. I mean, he was doing his thing, Thizzle, until he met Eric Sherman of the late 80s hip-hop group and 90s hip-hop group, EPMD, Eric and Parrish Making Dollars. And this album, the Whut the album, was produced by both Eric Sherman and Reggie Noble, with a few notables, like P-Rock did a track. P-Rock actually did one of my favorite tracks on there. But anyway, it was a dope album. Like, it was really dope. He represented Newark, New Jersey. It was pretty dope with the skits and everything. Like, it was dope. A lot of funk in there, you know, a lot of Parliament Funkadelic. Eric Sherman was doing that as well. And I just can't believe that we just missed it. Anyway, my favorite joints on there was, of course, Time for Some Action. The Blow Your Mind remake was dope on there, and they actually put it on there, right? Of course, Tonight's Tonight. That's another joint that was dope. How to Roll a Blunt, which was co-produced by P-Rock. That's one of my favorite joints on there. And, of course, A Day of Superman Lover. That was really, really dope. I mean, great storytelling there. But anyway, Reggie Noble, a.k.a. RedMan, he didn't have any tricks up his sleeve. He just did straight rhyming over dope beats. The production was dope. It's like, really, quite honestly, a classic album because you could play it from beginning to end and you would not be bored. And it's just a dope album. They don't make hip-hop like this no more. I don't mean to sound like a old fogey, but I just can't believe that Whut the album, like, cats wasn't talking about that. I'm actually ashamed. I'm going to be the first to admit it. But, yo, if you ain't check it out, check it out. If you haven't listened to it in a while, play it, man. Trust me, man. You'll dig it. Yo, shout out to my homie Sekou, DJ Sekou, a.k.a. Grandpa Krunk. And you can follow him on Twitter or IG as Grandpa Krunk. He has a podcast, Fly Guy Podcast, he's had for a while. And he's been trying to get me on it for a minute. But he just put me on the latest episode that got released actually today, Monday, October 2nd. If you get a chance to jump on that. I know I'm behind. I'm on there and I'm talking about Damon Young's Straight Black Men Are the White People of Black People. I'm talking about that article. Pretty much it's the same thing I said in my podcast last week, if you haven't heard it yet. I agree with Damon Young 100%. I do point out that he wasn't the first one to make that statement. Mela Machinko on Twitter said it like 2 years ago. She pretty much almost deleted her account because of all the nasty stuff that was coming her way. And then Rodimus Prime of the Black Guy Who Tips podcast also discussed it. But there's not anything new. Even somebody said it before they did. But definitely, like, check it out. Support the brother. I've known Sekou for, man, I've known him, maybe 20 years. So, yeah, definitely check that out, man. I appreciate that. Shout out to you, brother. Peace. When I was almost done editing and recording this show, we had the Las Vegas shooting where 50 people at this moment were killed. It's currently Monday, October 2nd. So definitely want to keep those peoples in our minds. Dig deep as well. And, let's try not to, we're still figuring things out. And as the news comes out, and it's real easy to take one tweet or take, a Facebook post or take an article from a questionable source and post it and then just start making opinions. I think we should let things settle where they need to settle while they're figuring things out, and go from there. And, love on people, man, because you just never know, man. You never know when someone is going to be in a situation where they might not be here anymore. So call people that you love, send postcards, write letters, send out emails, check on folks, text them, you know what I'm saying? And let's be humans to each other, man. Good, loving humans. Word.
Yeah. Yo, I think Krunk should run first for this one. I think so. Yeah. Yo, I think Krunk should run first for this one. I think so.
I know we were supposed to be talking about Secret Empire and the lead up to that, but I just want to say that that I have crossover fatigue. Many Marvel Comics fans have crossover fatigue, and I think I'm probably the one that suffers the worst from it. What's a crossover, right? For those that don't know, a crossover is a major event that takes place in a comic book's own universe, in particular the Marvel universe, that affects almost everyone in that universe. And usually they'll have like one comic book, a small limited series, a limited run that deals with that particular crossover, and it spills over to the other comics. That's why you get the idea of crossover, right? So you have, for example, Secret Invasion, where the Skrulls invaded the world, the Earth. And you had the main Secret Invasion comic, which was 8 issues. And then you have, and I think it was 8 issues. And then it crossed over to titles like the Avengers, the X-Men, Punisher, everybody, it just crossed over to everything there. So I hope that answers your question. But anyway, Marvel Comics, and the thing about crossovers is that there was a big crossover event. And I want to say DC started it off with the Infinite Crisis. I think they started it first with the Infinite Crisis back in the 80s, and it was a big hit. So Marvel Comics did one that was called Secret Wars, and it was a blockbuster. It sold all kinds of comics. What was crazy about this major event, it wasn't technically a crossover. It was a major event because they didn't cross it over to the other main titles, is that it wasn't crossover to the main title. There was just one Secret Wars title, one month. Everybody went into this thing, and then it just skipped over to the next month, and those heroes came back. So there wasn't any crossover. It affected them all. Like, for example, that's where Spider-Man got his black suit, the symbiote that later became Venom. He got it in the Secret Wars main event. But then they started doing crossovers where it affected everyone else. It started spilling over to their comic books. Anyway, I'll spend too much time on that. Since 2010, let me write this down, and I'm trying to go in a chronological order. Since 2010, Marvel has had, I'm going to say, 9 crossover events, right? And here we go. The first one in 2010 was Siege. Then after that and Siege was when Norman Osborn ran the Avengers. Yes, he did. And he attacked Asgard. And it was a big deal, right? Then you had Fear Itself, where Odin's son, the serpent. Not Odin's son, excuse me. Odin's brother, the serpent, came to the Earth and tried to destroy the Earth, right? Then after that, you had Infinity, which was Thanos returning to Earth. And we find out that he had a son. He was looking for his son, Thane, right? And also they had these things called builders, and they were trying to destroy the universe. So the Avengers went and got all the, the Shi'ar Empire, the Skrulls, the Kree to get together to fight against this thing, right? So that was Infinity. And then at the same time, they had to fight Thanos on Earth. Then you had AVX, or Avengers versus X-Men, where the Phoenix Force was coming back to Earth, and Scott was trying to get Hope Summers to absorb it so they can save the mutants, and the Avengers were like, no. So it was Avengers versus X-Men, and that's where Professor Xavier died, right? Then you had Original Sin, which was somebody killed the Watcher, and they were trying to find out who did it, and in the process, they learned Nick Fury who did it, and they learned about a lot of secrets that Nick Fury and the Watcher had, okay? Then you had Secret Wars, which is actually Secret Wars 3. Actually, technically Secret Wars 4, but we're not going to count that third one because it wasn't really like Secret Wars. But it was a fourth one, and I liked it because it was a continuation of the original one. I actually love Secret Wars. I really do. And that's when Dr. Doom took over the universe and created one planet that had all these different pieces of the Marvel Universe. That was actually good. Then you had Monsters Unleashed, right? Then you had Civil War 2. And then you had Secret Empire. So 9 crossover events in 7 years. So that's like 1.5 crossover, 1.2 crossover events. I'm not a mathematician, but we're tired. We're done. We're done. Marvel said they're going to stop, but I don't believe them. I don't believe them. So I have crossover fatigue. So next week we'll continue the story and get into Secret Empire. Peace. Superman lover, yeah. Something wrong indeed it is. Something wrong, yeah. Why don't use the term golden era? And it's funny because I used to use that term golden era of hip hop all the time, right? It's going to be a little long one, so bear with me. The first thing that happened to me is like, I'm a comic book fan, as you can tell, right? And you go to conventions, right? Comic book conventions, and you go to a spot where they have a fire sale on comics, right? And they'll have a section that'll be like Golden Age, Silver Age, right? And I was born in the 70s, so I was past the Golden Age and past the Silver Age. But the Golden Age is considered the period when because there was a time when comics were pretty much almost banned. So people had to make like comic books that were like Wednesday after school specials, right? They had to have a theme, or they were about detective comics or stuff like that. Like that's where DC came from, actually, detective comics. They had to be about police and stuff like that. So all the stuff about superheroes and types, that was considered like risque. So they moved away from that. Then there was a period when they went to horror. And there was a resurgence in superhero comics in the 50s and 60s. So they consider that kind of like the golden age. And in the 70s, they consider that like the silver age. And I could be wrong on the times, and that's another thing we're going to talk about. But when I would go to these comic book conventions, and to me, like, there's a lot of stories that came out in the 80s. Because in the 80s, you know, people like Frank Miller, you know, Chris Claremont, they were doing their thing, man. And they were really like changing the way we look at comic books. They made comic books like very, very serious, especially in Marvel Comics. So like they did a lot of serious stuff that wasn't corny, that wasn't contrived, and it was like really dope. I mean, I can give you several stories. Anyway, when I used to see that, I kind of felt like when they say golden age, and if you notice the golden age, and you know, there's a reason for why golden age comics cost more money, because it was older, it was a long time ago, and they only published X amount. So those are rare. So I get that. But there's this idea that the value of golden age is more, like they were written better, when actually golden age comics are like very racist and very sexist. And I'm not saying that the 80s stuff wasn't racist or sexist. I'm not trying to front and act like we were more enlightened back then. But when you look at the golden age stuff, it doesn't really speak to me like the stuff that came out in the 80s, right? This doesn't speak to me. I don't know if it's because how I came up, but there's just, for example, Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger, which they're about to do a TV series on, was written in the 80s during the beginning of the crack cocaine era. So Cloak and Dagger were actually like former addicts that got these powers, and then like they dealt with the discussion of, you know, teenage prostitution, right? Sex, really literally sex slaves, right? They dealt with crack cocaine, all that stuff, how the government wasn't really doing anything, how people were turning a blind eye towards it, all this stuff that was going on. And I thought that was like something that really spoke to me. I can only speak for myself. So that's just an example of how back then the comics were really like trying to touch on issues that were going on. And that goes to the idea that, politics has always been in comic books, so people need to stop that. Anyway, that being said, so I looked at how I looked at hip hop culture, and I was like, we need to stop doing that too. And another reason, because we're saying that stuff that came out from there is like superior to stuff that comes out, say, now. When we know that there's stuff that comes out now that's really dope. I'm not saying that it's better, either or it's better. It's just that kind of takes away from that. Also, the thing about saying golden era is because it actually only shouts out, and when people say golden era, they say between 1988 to 1992. Some say 86 to 92. Some say 86 to 94. That's disputed. But what it does is because at that time, most of the music that was being played on the radio and being marketed and distributed was from the northern part of the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and some of it Philadelphia, right? So it's from that area. And it was a particular style of music, which we now call boom bap, right? That we talked about before. So that's why I'm like, we shouldn't do that, because it kind of like neglects what other people were doing in other parts of the country. And I think that's whack. So that's why I don't use golden era. And I also don't use it because I believe that right now we're in that kind of era, because you see, several books about hip hop that come out, documentaries. You have people that do hip hop differently. It's all over the world. There's all these connections. And I think that we're seeing a resurgence in how people get down in their own style. And that's just me. If you want to fight me in the street, you can. So this episode 14 of Health, the segment on health, we're going to talk about listening to your body. Let me just say this, that a lot of times our body's giving us all these signals. And unfortunately, too many times we ignore this. I work with a lot of young people, and so a lot of times they'll come to me with symptoms, right? They're not actually problems, they're symptoms. Let me rephrase that. They're not the actual problem. They just come with me with symptoms, right? And their thing is, I just want to take this one piece of medicine that'll end that symptom, right? That'll make the symptom go away. And then they're good. But then as soon as the drug wears off, they're right back to it. And adults do it all the time, right? We do it all the time. So when I mean by symptoms, what I mean by that, right? So an example would be a headache, right? You get a headache, right? That is just the body telling you. It's just a signal to your brain saying that something is wrong. You're missing something, right? That's what it means. You're missing something. So for example, if you have a headache, it can mean several things, right? And the thing is, you're going to know this, right? You're going to know what it is. So, for example, if you're going to bed late and getting up early, by the third or fourth day, sometimes for some people, it'll be the 10th or 11th day, right? Because some people can go for a long time with very little sleep. You're going to get a headache, and you just lack of sleep. And the way you're going to know is try to figure out, have you been sleeping? And a lot of times we'll say, I've been getting a lot of sleep. Yeah, your body's very good at going to bed late and getting up early and then functioning like they got 8 hours sleep. Your body's very good at that because your body will adjust. But after a while, your body, it has finite resources, it has finite strength, right? It's at a certain point, it's going to say, I can't do this anymore. You need to get some sleep. So it'll signal to you and say, and it'll tell you, hey, you need to get some sleep. Also, like what I saw during the summer is a lot of people who had had the symptoms that led to heat stroke, right? They weren't drinking enough water, right? They were running around all day, overworking themselves, being in the sun, and just not listening to that body. So like, oh, my head hurts, so their head would hurt. They would feel very weak, right? There's nothing you can do to make them feel cool, right? You can put them in an air-conditioned room, things of that nature. And, so that's another example of how your body's telling you, like, hey, you need to drink water, right? You're getting dehydrated. You need to drink water. So it's just one of those things. Just pay attention to your body. And the key to that is knowing your body. And a lot of times when I teach, like when I'm teaching capoeira class, I always tell my students when they come in, I always tell them, one of the first things I tell them outside of, being a magician, I tell them they're going to be magicians. The other thing I tell them is that you know your body. You know your body better than your doctor. You know your body better than your mama. You know your body. I don't know your body. You know it. So if your body's hurting somewhere, like if we're doing a movement and your right knee is hurting, you need to listen to that. And we shouldn't be embarrassed. There's a lot of times people will be like, oh, my right knee hurts. I'm not going to say nothing because I don't want to sound like I'm weak. If your right knee hurts and we're doing something, usually a kick or something, you need to pay attention to that because you can get hurt very badly that way. And a lot of times that slight pain or ache, right, is your body telling you like, hey, there's a problem here. You need to check it out. So when you get those signals, pay attention to them, right? Slow down, stop. That might just mean you just need to wrap that knee up, right? It might just mean that you may need to lay off of it for a couple of weeks. But you should go see a doctor. You should go see someone, an expert in that field that'll tell you what's up, right? You might need to get an x-ray. And there's nothing to be embarrassed about. These things happen. We're humans and our bodies fail us all the time. So, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you know your body. So pay attention to those signals. I hope this helps out because a lot of times we end up getting help when it's done. Like there's nothing they can do about it, right? And a lot of times we'll look back and be like, man, this thing was bothering me since 3 years ago. And just get help. But remember to know your body and pay attention to it. Word.
This is a man's world, but it would be nothing without. This is a man's world.
Part 3, UBC, zip line McCarthy, heavy on the wrist, you blink my ice ring, John Lee Green, yeah, that's small, Part 3, UBC, zip line McCarthy.
To believe that this is probably the longest joint on this show, 14 episodes, how to approach women, number 14. Now, the other day I was building with one of my coworkers and, he brought up something and he was like, he was trying to approach this young woman and he was kind of hesitant to do it now because he's known her for a very long time. So he felt like if he did it now, she would shoot him down because he should have done it a while ago. He has a good point, but the question that was brought up was, when do you shoot your shot? And that's something that I actually cannot answer. That's something that you're going to know in your gut instinct when to do it. Now, here's the thing. The only thing about that is that you might be shooting your shot at the most inopportune time, right? So I think I'm going to say that not only do you trust your gut instinct, but also pay attention. I talked about this the other day. Pay attention. So you don't want a situation where the young woman might look flustered. She might look flustered. You might have looked, she might have been arguing with somebody else. So you want to definitely pay attention to that. But to be quite honest, outside of that, I really can't give you any advice about that because I have to be there. Like I have to be there to say go or not. It's not a good time to go now. You know what I'm saying? So like the thing about sometimes when it comes to men and their gut instincts, when it comes to these matters, is they're usually dead wrong. So maybe I'm giving you bad advice in that respect, right? But I think all the stuff that I talked about in the other 13 episodes might be helpful at this point, because if your hygiene is on point, if you do it in a respectful manner, if you're polite, if you come off as genuine and don't pose, don't pose, don't act, you know what I mean? Don't do theater. Just be yourself, be respectful, and you come with subject matter that's on point. I think you win, but at the same time, I don't know because there might be a moment where she may not be trying to hear it from nobody, and even though your intentions are good or you're not trying to run a game or anything like that, it's, it just might be a wrong time. So when it comes to that, when you shoot your shot, I don't know. To answer his question, I know the young woman, so it's kind of like, I don't think she'll shoot him down. A question might come up, right? But I don't think she'll shoot him down. But that's because I know the situation. So when do you shoot your shot? Again, I'm sorry I can't answer that question. I will say that you should be able to know, and if you do what I tell you earlier, you should be successful. But like all things when it comes to approaching a complete and total stranger in a public place or not so public place, it's a crapshoot. You know what I'm saying? You might approach the woman who has a boyfriend or a girlfriend or may not be looking for a relationship or may not be looking to date. So it's really a crapshoot. Just episode 1, we talked about handling rejection, and that's where that comes in. I hope this helps out. Try to keep the shout outs short and bittersweet. Definitely want to give a shout out to the people of Puerto Rico, people of Borinquen, my Boricua fam. Yo, man, I don't know, man. This shit is crazy. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, man, like, it's 2017, man. No one should be going through this, but mad love to y'all. Folks, dig deep. I'm going to try to like keep updating segments where in each episode where I talk about where you can donate. The more the merrier, the more creative, the better. You know what I'm saying? Got to give a shout out to my girl, Rochelle, poet extraordinaire, because she's like getting more T with Q and J love than I am. So I'm a little bit jealous, but I'm going to give you a shout out. And definitely got to give a shout out to one of my students, one of my 6th grade students, and his pops, Key Rock, his dad, he came into school one day, he had a Fun Crusher Plus shirt. And I was like, yo, he took it back to Fun Crusher Plus. So, yo, definitely a big shout out to you, brother, man, for keeping it real 90s, you know what I mean? And there you have it, y'all, the shout out. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Yep, there you go. Episode 14, man. I'm still here, man. Ain't nobody come for me. So, yo, again, I'm going to put everything in the show notes. If you need to hit me up, hit me at Dantres Omi, DANTRESOMI on Twitter. Or you can hit the podcast Twitter account, which is at Omis, OMIS podcast. You can hit me there. Just show a brother love. Check the show notes, definitely, man. I got a lot of stuff to put in there. Word. Until next time. Peace.